Hello and welcome to the Two Man Booth, your weekly scheduled podcast on the crazy world of professional wrestling. With me, Jonathan.
And me, Adam. And we will start this week with a very short news bit because we covered pretty much all the news on our last podcast, which was not that long ago. So there's only actually one bit which we need to talk about, and it's just the sad news that Mickie James suffered a pretty bad injury last weekend during a house show match and is going to undergo ACL surgery. She's not exactly a big part of the roster anymore, but I never like to see anybody injured, and I've got a lot of time for Mickie. She was at one point probably the best worker they had. So, you know, to see her go down with this is a little bit on the sad side.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, Mickey's not a big part of the show. She's not treated very well by the booking committee or anything like that, but she's always been really talented. She's a good, she's a decent to good worker. She had some really good matches over the years. She had a great feud with Trish, and she's really, really talented, and she always has been, and she should be being treated better than she is. It's sad to see that she's got an ACL injury, and hopefully she can recover from that as fast as possible. Fingers crossed for her.
And with that, we will move on to Monday Night Raw.
Hooray. Hooray.
We opened with the big dog. But before he could speak, here comes Shane, because God knows...
Shane's got to be everywhere. If Shane's not everywhere, is it really Monday Night Raw?
It's not.
Or SmackDown?
Or just any show ever in the history of the world.
Because Shane is the most entertaining thing that they have at the moment.
Is
like,
he?
all of those really good wrestlers that they've got, like Shane's who we all want to see, like a 50-year-old man still trying to pretend that he's 25.
But he wears...
Trainers, he wears Jordans, so that makes him cool, right?
Yeah.
It used to. Like, let's not forget how awesome it was when Shane came back.
Yeah, okay.
Let's not forget that. It's just, he sucks now.
Anyway, he says he will shut Roman up and prove he's the best in the world. Roman cuts him off and says he'll take him out on Friday, like as in Friday just gone, in redacted, and will
Spoilers, he
then
didn't.
beat Drew at Stomping Grounds, which, by the way, is the worst
Stomping Grounds
pay-per-view name I think I've ever heard. And yes, I do think it's worse than both Sin and Greed. I'm just throwing it out.
I agree, actually.
Yeah. So Drew does not agree, not with me, but with what Roman said. And while he has Roman distracted, the Revival attack him from behind. The Usos come to Roman's aid, and gee, I wonder where this is going. P.S. The one good thing in this opening segment, as bland and boring as it was, is it only lasted 8 minutes, and we actually started a wrestling match before going to the first commercial break on Raw. Yay!
We have progress.
Yeah, sort
no,
of.
we don't. We
Yeah.
don't. Facetiousness.
So, 6-man tag, obviously, Drew and the Revival versus Roman and the Usos. And you may have guessed it, it's a tag team match player. The babyfaces control things early, but post-break, the Revival take control. The heels isolate Jimmy and constantly cut him off to maintain the heat. We come back from break and Roman is just running wild. Okay, can I just say, like, it's been bothering me for a while that they seem to have forgotten that a very important part of a wrestling match is when the heels get the heat. And that tends to happen during the commercial break. Somebody will go for a dive and you'll come back and the heels are in control. And you've given me zero reason to care for the fact that they've taken charge of the match because you haven't shown us the heat or how they got the heat. What did they do? Did they cheat? How did this happen? How did the babyface fall behind the 8-ball?
Or are they just better than the babyface?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But this time, they went one step further and we had the hot tag during the break. So we came back and Roman's just running wild.
It's
what?
Like, yeah, which either is them planning the match badly or it's just bad pacing of the match itself.
Yeah, whatever.
Neither would shock me.
Yeah. So Drew catches Roman with a headbutt, but Reigns falls back into Jey Uso, who gets the tag. Roman rebounds anyway and hits Drew with a Superman punch. Jimmy runs in and superkicks Dawson, but gets clobbered by Wilder, who then falls victim to the Superman punch himself. Jey has finally made it in and goes up top, but as the ref is dealing with the chaos on the other side of the ring, Shane slides in and crotches Jey. Roman chases Shane, but when he grabs him, Drew catches Roman with a Claymore. He sets up Jey for one as well, and when Jimmy tries to make the save, the Revival pull him out the floor and take him out with the Shatter Machine, as Drew hits the Claymore on Jey for the win. This was decent, if a little bit disjointed, but I get the feeling this will have actually been fun live. It came across a bit disjointed on TV. After the match, the Revival hit the Shatter Machine on Roman. Drew hits a seated Claymore and Shane spears him before doing Roman's roll, which was kind of funny, but not in the right way.
Yeah, this was just meh to me.
Yeah.
Like, it was there.
Like I say, I think it would have been fun live.
For me, it's one of those where like it's good in a vacuum. Again, like
it's just the same thing we see every single week.
These things happen, but there's no real connection to them. There's no real like continuity and everything like that. And it just feels, like you said, disjointed, and a lot of it just feels like it happens. There's no coherent storyline throughout everything. It's just like week to week to week things happen that are not connected.
So one of the complaints I've always heard about Japan from people who don't watch Japanese wrestling is, but all the shows they used to build, they just do the same sort of 6-man or 8-man tags to build. But like you've got to actually pay attention to those matches because they do things that build, and you will see the challenger maybe become more confident and start working over a body part, which will then play into the match, the actual title match.
Or the development of a feud in general, because the two major guys in the match end up going at this and developing a rivalry in that 6-man tag.
Exactly, but within these 6-man tags that they do on Raw every week, like, yes, it's the people that are feuding, and it's maybe you get a heat segment or whatever, but does it actually connect anything? Does it
go anywhere?
Yeah, does it actually do anything?
It's just filler.
Yeah,
well, that's all it is.
They've got 3 hours to fill, I guess.
Yeah.
So Miz TV is next, and his guest is Seth. Miz asks him about the match with Corbin, and Brock confirming he is cashing in tonight.
Yeah.
I know, right?
You're confirming. It's definitely happening. Definitely. Totally.
Yeah. And yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Seth doubts Brock even tips up and says Heyman never tells the truth. At least Seth's paying attention. Nobody else is, but at least Rollins is.
Yeah, the fans aren't. We aren't.
Rollins says he would be relieved if Brock cashes in on him because he can't afford to focus on what may be when he has a title to defend on Friday. We see Brock and Heyman arrive. They head towards the stage, but then stop just short and turn around.
Do we know why they're actually pressuring Brock to cash in?
I have no idea.
Like, why is the company pressuring Brock to cash in?
It makes no sense.
He has a year that's in the contract. He could literally take until, what is it, the week before Money in the Bank next year? He could take all that time he wants.
I think it's actually the day
Money
before Money in the Bank.
Yeah, like, it does not matter. It's so illogical. It makes no sense. He could do it whenever he wants. It's the whole point of the contract. The company doesn't have to know. He can do it whenever he likes. Sorry, rant over.
Lucha House Party are out next. Lars Sullivan follows them. They try to swarm him, but he throws them all off. He dominates for a while, but after nearly dropping Grand Metalik when going for a gorilla press, he gets hit by a dropkick from each member of the Lucha House Party, and then a triple dropkick by them. End segment. This happened.
Made no one look good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that. The Iconics mock Nikki Cross until Alexa tips up and makes some bad Aussie jokes. The Iconics leave and Alexa makes another awkward joke. Alexa offers to go get Nikki a coffee. Nikki says her and Alexa are friends, and Alexa offers to be in Nikki's corner. This was the most obvious "I'm going to turn on you at some point in the near future" segment I have ever seen in my entire life.
I'm a bad person, but I'm now your friend. And it's going to make Nikki look stupid as well. Like, why would you trust Alexa? She has she doesn't have a good track record with being friends with people, does she?
No. So Becky is out next. She says she's happy and content, but that is not good because that's when fighters fail. She goes on a diatribe about what she will do to get Lacey, at which point Lacey arrives. She walks down to the ring and is soon cut off by Becky, who does a pretty good impression of her before saying she will rip her arm off. Lacey says she will turn Becky into Becky No Belt because this is her division and Becky doesn't represent her. Charlotte arrives and accuses Becky of making excuses for her loss at Money in the Bank. Becky asks where Charlotte's belt is. Charlotte points out she is more than halfway to her dad's record. Yeah, she's a 9-time champ, people.
Yeah.
She mocks Lacey for being under her foot last week on SmackDown. Charlotte is truly amazing. I was saying this to you earlier in the week. I'm saying this, and I'm saying this now because I am about to bury her for what comes next. But she somehow manages to be like Balance, being an entertaining, over-the-top, conniving heel, while simultaneously feeling like a real person. Like an interaction, there was just a small bit where she's interacting with Lacey, and it feels so off the cuff, so unscripted, so real. And she's one of the people who plays, I would say, one of the more over-the-top characters.
An over-the-top bitch.
Exactly.
That is her character.
That is essentially what she is. But yet still, she manages to maintain that sort of semblance of reality where I could actually see her acting this way.
Someone be that way in real life.
Exactly, which so few others on the roster can. And I was saying
like
to you,
Lacey
stuck out like a sore thumb in this segment because
she's a cartoon
Becky
character.
and Charlotte are both playing characters, but they also feel like real people, which is very rare on WWE TV now.
Yeah.
And Lacey is the very definition of a character that doesn't feel
she's
real.
a cartoon character.
Well, that's what I said to you the other
Like
day
a
as
TV
well,
show.
isn't it? It's like if you were in the middle of 1998 and you were doing Steve Austin versus The Rock, and all of a sudden you decide to make it a three-way feud and you drop Papa Shango in the mix.
Yeah.
That's a kind of disproportion between the reality and the...
You've got two characters based on reality, and then you've got one that's
just a
gimmick,
cartoon, like you
gimmick.
said. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally weird.
They don't get it, though.
They don't. So Lacey's character work is bad, don't get me wrong, but it's just the...
She tries, though.
It's the variance between the three that made it feel so jarring.
She does try.
Yeah, she does.
Like, she's... Like, I think the character sucks, and I don't think she's a good wrestler, but, like, she really does
yeah.
try.
And you know what?
I can never criticise her for
her
that.
Twitter game is on point.
Yeah, I can never criticise her for that. She tries and delivers a gimmick well, I think, because the gimmick sucks.
Yeah. Anyway, Lacey attacks Charlotte, I guess, but it kind of looked like she just fell into her. This leads us to the match. Oh, boy.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was good, wasn't it? I loved it. I think it was a 5-star match. I think I can't wait until I see what Meltz rates it.
So Becky's at ringside, and okay, first off, can I just say that I love that they did try to do something different here. We always say this show is far too formulaic, so I do want to give them credit for trying something different. The problem is, well, it's two-parted. It absolutely sucked,
Yeah.
and they half-baked it. So the match
kind of shoot
starts.
style, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
so the match starts, and they try to do like Shibata versus Sakuraba or something like that, and they have none of the requisite skill or background to do so. Anyway, this is bad stuff, and it goes on for a while, but then they just stop working shoot style at all, and it just goes to a regular wrestling match. Problem is, they just get totally lost. And I don't know whether it was because they were so focused on the first half of the match, given they're not used to working this style, or what it was, but they are all over the place.
I wonder if Vince got in the ref's ear and the ref told them, like, abort, basically.
Possibly could have been that too. But their timing is off, and it gets really bad when Charlotte is in the corner. Lacey runs into her, and they just hug for an eternity before Charlotte decides one of them actually needs to do something, so hits an STO backbreaker. She then goes for a figure four and waits for what felt like 2 years for Lacey to kick her, but Lacey does nothing, so Charlotte then just continues turning to sort of apply the hold, and then Lacey then decides to kick her off. They go for an ugly-looking double crossbody, and then Becky mercifully ends things by attacking Charlotte for the DQ. I'd usually rant about the babyface interfering, but to be fair, after that match,
Save us,
that was a
Becky.
babyface move.
Yeah, save us, Becky.
This was absolutely horrible. So post-match, Becky beats Lacey down and poses with her title.
Not a good segment. Not a good.
Wow.
Not good.
Just...
If literally, if anything summed up Monday Night Raw at the moment, this segment was it.
I would say this was on average worse than your Monday Night Raw.
No, you know what I
Usually
mean,
is.
though?
Like, this was of a lower standard than we've come to expect, and the standard's pretty damn low.
Yeah, that's bad. Can you get into negative standard?
Well, if we can, we've just seen it.
Yeah.
So Rey Mysterio's out next. He talks about his son and how he's training, and for that reason he needs to do the right thing. Before he can officially relinquish the US title, out comes Samoa Joe. He has come for his championship because Rey never beat him. Rey lays the title down and Joe chokes him out. So I guess Joe is champ again. I mean, I know he was kind of screwed in their match,
But he was
giving him the
legitimately counted.
title back is such a weird move.
Like, he was like, I know he didn't actually lose. We all saw it, but he did actually lose. The referee, the official counted at 3, and they always go, our officials count is final, and the decision that the official
no
makes.
VAR in
Yeah,
WWE.
so you can't just suddenly go, oh, well, that was a mistake, because then that would take out every single heel interference ever. Like, you just can't do it. It makes no sense.
And this is not DDT, where they will actually do VAR. Yeah.
No, it's just...
One of the most entertaining segments I've ever seen.
I would like to hope what's going to happen is that it's next week someone is going to come out, some babyface authority figure. Don't know where the hell they're going to find one of those from.
Drake Maverick. Sorry.
I mean,
You
actually
said?
on Raw, though.
Put Drake on Raw.
He is on Raw, running around after the 24/7 title match.
Don't.
But I imagine that they're going to have someone come out and say, like, Joe, like, Ray may have relinquished the title, but that does not mean you're champion.
Well,
and then
to be fair,
we'll have some kind of ladder match for it or some such or whatever.
all the McMahons take turns just turning on a week-by-week basis, so whatever.
Hunter's the only one who's even close to being babyface.
Yeah. We get some selfie promos from Cesaro and Ricochet. Cesaro says there's enough people around here who like to hear the sound of their own voices, but he likes to let his actions do his talking. Oh, preach, brother. Ricochet's promo was very generic. Next up, we have an arm wrestling contest with Braun and Lashley. Now, we vehemently disagree on this segment.
Just sucked.
Because to me, this was straight out of late 80s Jim Crockett Promotions.
Whereas to me, this was everything that's wrong about current WWE.
I loved this. I thought it was
hated it.
great. I thought it was super entertaining.
Oh, so
very
boring.
old school.
Very boring.
So we'll go through the segment first and then we'll talk about it.
People arm wrestled.
One thing that made me laugh was Renee legitimately said at the start of the segment, "This is the best." And that quote was verbatim. And at that point I was like,
irony.
Really? But she ended up being
This
kind of
is
right.
such good stuff.
The crowd was more into it than anything else on the show, just saying. They have the table ready, but Lashley slaps Braun and tries to rile him up.
Hang on, can I just say, the crowd being more into this than anything else on the show, that does not mean anything. That's like a car crash being the most entertaining part of your journey home. Does not mean it was good.
No, that's harsh. Yeah. They finally get going, but Lashley slips, so they both put chalk on their hands. They
Sorry, it's the way you're saying this. Like, how is this good? They both slip, so they put chalk on their hands. Oh, this is gripping stuff.
They have a Titanic arm wrestling battle, which was genuinely a lot of fun. Braun wins and celebrates, but Lashley throws chalk in his face and then finishes Strowman off with Braun's own running power slam. Now,
you did not sell that well.
To me, this was almost just a rehash of. There was an angle in Jim Crockett Promotions, it was when the Road Warriors were feuding with the Powers of Pain, and they did a segment where they were doing I don't think it was an arm wrestle. I want to say it was a bench press contest. And I think there was chalk thrown in that situation as well. I think Paul Jones threw chalk at one of the Road Warriors, and then they beat him up with the side, like the plate from a weight thing. It was straight. It was totally like that. And
whereas to me, it was totally like the arm. I'm pretty sure it was an arm wrestling segment between Steiner and Hunter.
No, that was a bodybuilding pose off, and that sucked.
Oh well, there was something
that was.
There
awful.
has been an arm wrestling contest on Raw before, and I think fairly recently.
I think that has been.
If you remember what it was, please let us know, because I can't remember what it was. But it felt like it just. I saw it and I immediately was just like, oh, come on.
Well, to be fair, I had the same reaction when I heard they were doing that segment, and that's why I wrote the bit in my notes about Renee saying, this is the best, because I was legitimately thinking at the time, this is going to suck.
This is such good stuff.
I genuinely, it's not often we disagree, but I genuinely enjoyed the segment.
I genuinely think it was just awful.
24/7 rubbish. And then we got Nikki Cross versus Peyton Royce.
The rebook, by the way, of the 24/7 title will be coming soon. Within the next couple of weeks, we hope to get that done.
Mm-hmm. So it was Nikki versus Peyton next. This was not nearly as bad as Lacey versus Charlotte, but it still sucked. They have a clunky and slow match until Alexa gets coffee delivered to her. She throws some at Peyton, who kicks the cup out of her hand. Alexa is upset, then Billy pushes her into the spilled coffee. Well, I say she pushes her into the spilled coffee. She pushed her next to it, so then Alexa kind of has to shuffle over to sit in the coffee.
Roll over into it.
Yeah. The distraction, though, allows Nikki to hit the drape and net breaker for the win. Nikki is happy, but Alexa is upset and beats down the Iconics. Nikki eventually manages to get Alexa to celebrate with her. This was flat and not very good, and the Iconics lost again. Kayfabe, they may well be the worst champions in history.
The weakest champions you've ever seen. Yeah, they've won twice.
Once, I think.
When it was to the Jobbers.
Yeah, that's the only match I think they've won since.
Whatever, the
Brooklyn Bells, something like that, yeah.
Yeah?
It was straight after Mania, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Isn't that bad that like they're the only actual opponents I can really remember them having? And how bad's that?
I know I always say
they don't need
the Iconics don't need to be massively protected because that's not who they are. But they are the champions and they should be winning at least some matches.
What you're basically saying is that like the best tag team in the world that are female, actually they suck and they just flukishly won this one time.
Mm-hmm.
It's awful.
I don't get it.
And then why can no one beat them? Like, for a title match. It's awful.
Seth is back out and he demands Brock come out. Brock's music hits, but instead we get Corbin. Corbin promises to win the title on Friday and says he will retire Rollins just like he retired Kurt Angle.
Can he retire?
They brawl.
That would be loads better. I don't want to see Rollins retire. I want to see Corbin retire, though.
They brawl and Seth wins the battle. Brock's music hits and the distraction allows Corbin to hit End of Days. Now Brock is really here. He low blows Rollins and brutalizes him with chair shots. He continues destroying Rollins as Heyman begs him to cash in. Brock instead hits an F5 on the floor. Heyman continues to beg, but Brock just says, Friday! Rollins
Friday.
Don't.
Was that not what Lesnar did?
No.
Also, right, I'll let you finish the segment before we point out how moronic this was.
So Rollins' back is cut to bits. Brock leaves but comes back down and hits Rollins with the briefcase.
I'm not finished with you.
He then laughs, which was my favourite part of this whole segment, because they zoomed in on Brock laughing, and in the background, just completely juxtaposed to Brock, is a completely perplexed man in a New Japan shirt. Just unintentional hilarity. He just looked so confused.
Wrestling,
and I just see
2019.
King of Sports on his chest, and I'm like, yeah, mate, you're at the wrong show.
Yeah, you done bad. Right, so
in all seriousness, though, Brock looked like an idiot here, which is just what we're about to discuss.
Right, so first off, the segment was stupid and moronic. So, you have this contract which gives you the opportunity for a whole year of your choice. Let's remind WWE that, your choice, to cash in whenever you like. You have just beaten the living daylights out of the champion. No one is around. Your main advisor, who has been proved
he brought the referee down with him.
Yeah, who has been proved to be right the majority of the time, by the way. Like, Heyman has a pretty good track record of decision making.
He's no Tyrion Lannister.
No, he planned the beating of the streak.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, he was the mastermind behind that. Well, Vince was the mastermind behind that, but anyway, moving on. And he then has the choice to literally just beat him and take the title. And he would have done, because that's what they've just shown happen. And he then goes, no, Friday when the champ's in a title match and I don't know what's going to happen. And in theory, Rollins could beat Corbin in about 10 seconds and be fresh as a daisy for that match. And right, now let's get on to the major thing. They promised that there would be a cash-in. They bait and switched everyone in the desperate hope to get viewers.
For the third straight week.
Like, you can't
bait
and switch.
And then they did it on Friday at Super Showdown as well.
Yeah, because he didn't do it again. Well, he tried, in theory.
No, did he?
Well, he came out with the briefcase.
And then Heyman fell over the ropes, dropped the briefcase, and that turned everything around.
WWE Saudi scumbags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff. This did we'll get onto viewership at the end of the show, but this did pop the rating slightly, although not as high as I'm sure they hoped.
And can you imagine
this is a very short-term view, because now people have zero reason to believe you will actually deliver what you promise.
Like, WCW used to do this.
Yeah, and that's what really killed them, because people didn't trust them.
So
you could then advertise Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan in the main event of Nitro, and people probably still wouldn't tune in, because they'd be like, nah, they'll screw us out of it somehow.
Yeah.
So what's the point in watching?
Yeah. When your viewers lose faith in what you're doing, like, you are done.
Yeah.
You are absolutely done.
So Seth gets stretchered out, and Becky is with him when he is loaded into the ambulance.
Because
so I guess
everyone has to know. Yeah, they confirmed it on Twitter, but God,
I just mean I guess it's official in-show canon now.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, because we've got to show this. Like, Becky can't stand on her own 2 feet. Stupid. Raw sucked, by the way.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Ugh.
Firefly Funhouse airs.
We're not done, are we?
And it is very weird this week. Bray talks to a pig puppet, which is a Husky Harris cosplayer. He talks about exercise and weight issues. Then a devil Vince puppet turns up, and we get
That was a puppet?
Yeah, and we get a hallucinogenic sequence of a 90s Paula Abdul style workout video spliced with creepy imagery.
I thought it was
just beyond weird.
I thought that was just Vince.
No.
It wasn't?
No.
So Vince isn't the devil?
No. Triple H is out next to hype the match with Orton. Randy follows him out. Hunter talks about trying to drum up interest in this fight, but they've said it all before. Wow. A way to bury your own promo before you've even started.
We have nothing left to say, because you've seen it 1,000 times.
Orton says he's a legend killer, and Hunter talks about everything they've done to each other, but puts Orton over as one of the best ever. However, lots have tried before, and Orton will not be the one to put him down. We get some bad testicle-based humour from both guys, and the segment ends. I loved how Hunter basically came out and said, "We've said everything that can be said," and then proceeded to cut a 10-15 minute promo. Just, like, I love Hunter, I do, but this was beyond moronic, and you cannot tell me he doesn't have creative control. No. This was stupid. Yeah, this was one of the worst segments on the show. Yeah. In fact, if it hadn't been for the Lacey Charlotte match, this probably would have been the worst segment of the show.
Yeah, it's like two wrestlers having a match and going, well, you know, we've seen everything that we can do before, and then doing nothing new. Like, you'd be like, well, yeah, that's exactly what you did before. And it'll get boring. Just rubbish. Rubbish.
Rude interviewer catches up with Corbin backstage and he feigns concern about what happened to Rollins, but then says he is celebrating. And on Friday, with Rollins being so injured, he will become the new Universal Champion.
Spoilers, he didn't. Thank God he didn't.
Yes.
God.
Yet.
Well,
he's facing Rollins at Stomping Grounds.
Super serious show that nobody cares about.
Ricochet versus Cesaro. Yay.
Well, what happened here?
This was good.
Well, of course it was.
They start off fast until Cesaro hits a backbreaker and gets the heat. Post-break, Ricochet hits a sunset flip for 2. Cesaro then charges, but Ricochet moves and Cesaro drives himself into the post. Ricochet goes up top, but Cesaro cuts him off and hits a deadlift superplex for 2. They trade sort of control until Cesaro hits a swing and follows with a pop-up European for 2. Ricochet fights back and goes for the springboard crossbody, but Cesaro rolls through for 2. They trade pinfall attempts and then go for some kind of tilt-a-whirl maneuver, but they get stuck, so Ricochet thinks on his feet and quickly transitions into a roll-up for the win. A really good match, and they saved the finish really well because they totally screwed up the tilt-a-whirl, but then just made it look like it almost looked planned in the end.
Yeah,
it definitely wasn't, but it
shows
almost
how good
looked.
Ricochet is.
Yeah. Post-match, Cesaro lays Ricochet out and goes for a ladder and then a table. So I'm wondering if we're heading towards some kind of no DQ or TLC match going forward. I like that this now seems to be a feud and not simply a meaningless series of matches with 50-50 booking on display.
You mean like the rest of everything that's on the show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when Cesaro pulled out the table, truth was lying on it. This brought the 24/7 gang out. It allowed Ricochet to dropkick Cesaro into the front row, and then Cedric hit a tope on everyone except Truth. Maverick slid in the ring, and Carmella superkicked him before her and Truth ran away. This was the most entertaining segment they've done with the 24/7 belt so far. And they then actually did something pretty cool.
Yeah, everything
was it Twitter and
it was
YouTube?
On
they
YouTube,
did?
yeah, like everything that they're doing with 24/7 title on Raw and SmackDown kind of sucks. But what they're doing on the Twitter and the YouTube stuff, like they did something like about. We won't spoil it for anyone, but go on if you haven't seen it. Go on WWE's YouTube or their Twitter or whatever, wherever they've put it. I think it'll be on their YouTube. It's all to do with like the airplane journey in between shows, and it's really entertaining. And you can just tell that Vince has had very little to do with it because it's really entertaining. And like when we are going to book the 24/7 title, like we said, in the next couple of weeks, and we'll go through that on one of these podcasts. And that a lot of that kind of stuff is what we'll do because it's really comedic and funny, but it makes the title feel quite important because everyone's after it.
I'm not like struck on that title having to be the most important thing. It's not your world title,
but it should be. It should have some value.
It's there to be entertainment with a reason for people to be invested.
Yeah,
that's all. That's all you have to deliver with that title. It's not the most complicated belt in the world. You just have to be doing entertaining things.
Yeah.
So Undertaker comes out for our final segment and says on Friday Goldberg will come face to face with death. Jesus, in retrospect, that line is quite
because the two of them almost
close.
Killed each other.
Yeah.
In one of the worst worked matches you'll ever see in your life.
Did not see it, but I have heard it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have seen 3 spots from the match. I've seen where Goldberg knocked himself out on the ring post in like the second minute of the match.
Where he almost spiked Taker on his head with the brain hammer.
The brain hammer. And then the tombstone that nearly broke Goldberg's neck.
And could have, like, the 2 spots in particular, like,
I would say that
could have killed
the worst two happened to Goldberg because like the spot where he gets knocked out in the ring post is awful, and realistically I get that it's the main event of your pay-per-view, but they should have stopped.
He did that in WCW as well, didn't they?
They should have stopped it, yeah, but you could say that they didn't know enough back then.
Yeah.
Like that dude should not have been working the rest of the match after that.
No.
We probably have been safe to stick Jeff Hardy out there at Victory Road in 20.
He's apologised as well because the match was so bad.
Yeah,
he actually apologised on Twitter, and he was like, but he was then a bit iffy and said like, oh, like people that are enjoying this.
I think it was because a lot of people were like taking pleasure in, like, there was lots of gifs going around of people like laughing at Goldberg spiking himself on the ring post, and for me that's not funny.
Yeah, I don't take pleasure in it or anything like that. Just the thing is, for me, it's emblematic of all of the problems with that company and the reliance on part-timers. Like,
stick two guys who should be past retirement age in the ring and
what's
watch
going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there was an amazing, someone put on Twitter, I can't remember who, but it was an interview for a Canadian TV show. Remember Off the Record?
Yeah.
With Michael, I think it's Michael Landsberg.
I'm not sure who it is.
Yeah, and from like 2002, and the part of the interview that was put on Twitter was a part where Taker goes, like, I do not want to be one of those guys that hangs around too long and can't go anymore and just doesn't belong anymore. Like, as long as I can still go with the Young Bucks, to which everyone was laughing on Twitter, I'll still be here. But when I can't, like, I'll be gone, because I'm not going to be one of those people to shell of myself.
Yeah,
and
here
it's just
we are.
like, look at Taker now. It's so sad.
So Taker doesn't want Goldberg the family man. He wants the mythical Goldberg. And if Goldberg brings anything less than that, their first match will be their last. He will claim Goldberg's soul for eternity because Goldberg is next. Really not much to that. If that was what you were building your whole show towards, there was really nothing to write home about.
And I hope it's their last match. I really do. First and last.
Usually I have some pretty in-depth analysis at the end of my notes about what Raw was like, but I've literally wrote 4 words. Raw sucked this week.
Boring, sucked, formulaic,
bad,
awful, boring, bland, just
not good.
Literally, but the same thing that it's been for like a month and a half now.
With sprinklings of awful segments in there and awful matches.
Raw just sucks.
Yeah,
it's just bad.
But this seemed like a particularly bad one. Yeah. So Raw viewership. Raw did 2.41 million viewers this week, up 10% from last week, but given there was no NBA Finals game this Monday, although they did go head-to-head with the Stanley Cup Finals.
It's going to be bad, though.
That's not good.
It's going to be bad on Monday.
It's going to be bad.
Because Monday it's going against Game 5.
Monday's tomorrow night, because we're recording this on Sunday evening where we are. They're going up against Game 5, like you say, and although the Raptors are 3-1 up, and the series pretty much looks done because Golden State have not looked good in the last couple of matches.
See if the Warriors lose.
Of course they will.
It's the end of what we thought was going to be a dynasty.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the end, but that's a different conversation for a different show.
Yeah.
So teasing the Brock cash-in clearly worked, although it probably won't going forward, given they've taught their audience that they are full of it. And Taker certainly had an effect, although neither was as big as you would have thought. For the first time in ages, the first hour was the lowest rated hour at 2.31 million viewers, whilst hour 2 brought in 2.56 million, and hour 3 did a very respectable 2.35.
But that's because people were convinced that was the cash-in in the second or the third hour?
The cash-in was sort of end of second hour, top of third.
Yeah, so that's why.
Yeah. And Taker, I think, will have kept a lot of people around. But it's still, like, having more viewers at the end of your show than the start is one positive that they can take from this week.
Considering what they were throwing at the show.
Yeah, you would have. No, it's not.
Not good.
And with the relative lack of competition, I know the Stanley Cup is on, but, no NBA Finals on that night. But
yeah, and hockey's not.
I do genuinely think that we could be heading towards a record low tomorrow.
Meltzer believes that. Meltzer says that he believes it'll be worse, as in like an all-time low, not just like a non-holiday low.
Well, I think the record low is now a non-holiday show, because it was not the one from 3 or 4 weeks ago before the ratings started to turn around a little bit. I think that was the lowest ever. Yeah, including holidays.
Either way, Meltzer believes it'll be worse than any holiday
would not
shows.
Shock me. So, SmackDown Live then. We open with Xavier and Kofi. Kofi talks about life and its challenges and euphoric moments. He says winning the WWE title at Mania was amazing, but inspiring others has been even better. They show Kofi's return to Ghana. Kofi gets emotional talking about the kids and relatives he met. Ziggler arrives and has a video package of his own showing his own story. He says he gave everything to WWE and the fans, but Kofi got the moment that should have been Ziggler's. Kofi puts over Dolph and their history, but shows Ziggler surrendering the US title and says Dolph took himself out of the game, but Kofi never quit. Kofi promises to retain on Friday at Money in Vince's bank, but Dolph says this time it will be him. He leaves as KO and Sammy arrive. Are they just together again now, even though they're on separate brands? This show has ceased to make sense. I'm pretty sure they've tagged for like 4 weeks straight, and they're on separate brands.
Mate, do you think the brand split even exists anymore?
I don't know.
It doesn't. And the wild card is not a thing. It's just however many people turn up that Vince wants this week.
This was fine, but went a little long and was the same formulaic stuff we've been seeing twice a week for years now.
It was.
The one thing I did like, the
Kofi
stuff with the Garner stuff was like actually genuinely touching and really nice. It was super formulaic and just everything we complain about every week.
Yep.
Was sort of in this segment.
Start with a wrestling match.
So, speaking of wrestling, we had Steen Jericho versus New Day next, and the New Day dominate early, but the heels soon got the heat. The New Day regain control after Kofi fights back, though, and the New Day work some double teams of their own. The heels regain control and get a longer heat segment, isolating Xavier. Woods fights back, but Zayn tags Owens in. He goes for the senton, but Xavier gets the knees up. A hot tag to Kofi allows him to run wild on Sammy. He hits the boom drop, but Owens cuts off the Trouble in Paradise by grabbing Kofi's leg. Xavier takes him out, and Sammy and Kofi get a little lost, but recover quickly. Kofi hits a super kick, and then Trouble in Paradise follows for the win. This was average, but fine. Post-match, Ziggler attacks Kofi and lays him out with a super kick. Xavier tries to save Kofi, but he eats a super kick too.
I like the Ziggler stuff. The problem is it's Ziggler. The match itself was fine, but I feel like it's going nowhere. Like this Zayn and Owens feud with the New Day. Like I feel it's very directionless.
I just think
it needs something to reignite it.
I do kind of feel for them in this sense because
it would have ended it.
They were building towards the Saudi show, and
money.
Sammy is obviously, as we've established before, been told he can't go because of his heritage, which sucks. And Owens, for reasons I personally believe, although it's not being reported, because he's supporting his friend.
Yeah, it's
because him and Zayn are thick as thieves. Like that's not just a gimmick for the show. Like they are in real life.
They've been best
very,
friends
very close.
for
Yeah,
ages,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think they've had to work around the fact that neither of those guys were going to be on the Saudi show, so they had to build something up, but still keep them in because
it just feels heatless now.
But I think the plan is to do, although this one hasn't been in. No, sorry, it has. I've always thought the plan was for the next pay-per-view to do Kofi versus Ziggler versus Owens in a triple threat, but now they've announced at Super Showdown that they're doing Kofi versus Ziggler inside a steel cage. So I don't know what's going on. Yeah, just whatever.
Yeah.
So Shane is backstage and rolls footage of the beatdown of Roman on Raw. He asks Roman to remember that anything he can do, Shane can do better. Yay. Wildcard moment of bliss is next. Alexa interviews Bayley, but before she brings her out, she says she's from a superior brand. She makes Bayley wait as she sorts out a coffee situation. Seriously, like how obsessed with coffee is Alexa? Why is this now basically her gimmick?
That she likes coffee and she wrestles.
Essentially.
Makes no sense, does it?
Alexa says Bayley had a good night at Money in the Bank, but Bliss is a 2-time SmackDown Women's Champion, back when that title used to mean something. Bayley says she's looking for new opponents, but Alexa cuts her off again, and Bayley slaps her coffee away. Before things can escalate, Carmella comes out and says you can't talk about Money in the Bank and champions without mentioning her. Charlotte is next out as we complete the revolving door segment. She apparently talked with Shane and got her versus Alexa versus Carmella booked to see who will face Bayley at Stomping Grounds. She is either really quick at talking to Shane, considering this all occurred right in front
of a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Or she's psychic, and she knew that Alexa was going to kind of wind Bayley up, and she knew Carmella was going to come out and interrupt. So we've established either Charlotte is like right next to Shane,
omnipotent,
and they're backstage, and she just went, "Can you book us 3 in a match, and I'll go out there and tell them." And Shane goes, "Yeah, whatever." Or she's actually psychic,
or she's omnipotent, like she is God.
That would be omniscient, not omnipotent. Omnipotent is all powerful. Omniscient is all seeing.
Maybe she's all powerful.
See, this show is not just for wrestling. We educate on this show.
Yeah, we do. They don't. So we're going to have to.
So we see Carmella and Truth in a comedy segment backstage. Shane calls Carmella to speak the truth and books him in a match next. It's Elias versus Truth, and this is a lumberjack match, but it is also a regular match in the sense that only Elias can pin Truth while the match goes on, so no 24/7 rules.
So it's not 24/7?
Not at the moment. Elias sends...
Do you remember the hardcore title? People could go and run in and just join matches.
Yeah. I do get like suspending it for a match though, and I think that's something I would do as well.
Actually, well, yeah,
Because we talked about the doing a match every week in the third hour, so everybody got TV
it would
time.
be a cluster if it didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay,
So
okay, I'll take
like
that back.
that part I didn't mind.
I'll take that back.
But literally this lasted no time. Like Elias sends Truth to the outside, the Lumberjacks beat him down and throw him back in, and then Elias hits a jumping knee and rolls him up to win the title. And that was it. And then they did their second entertaining thing with the title since it's been on TV.
But no one's seen it.
But nobody saw it. Because Truth versus Elias happened straight after, I guess, because the Lumberjacks all swarm Elias after the match. He sneaks out as they all brawl, and he sort of tries to crawl away, but Truth was on the outside anyway, so Truth for some reason is crawling as well. I don't know why. But they crawl towards each other, and then Elias just has this look on his face like he's terrified of R-Truth, like R-Truth is like Braun Strowman or Lars Sullivan or somebody.
Brock.
So he's like, Brock, yeah. So he just crawls away under the ring and Truth crawls under and we just see everybody continue brawling in the ring, but all of a sudden the bell rings and Truth emerges with the belt, having seemingly pinned Elias under the ring.
I actually had, but that wasn't seen on...
I thought it was funny, but I wish they'd been able to do something where it's obviously going to be difficult because it must be dark under there. But I would like...
It wasn't the footage that unless they did it after the show.
Did they do footage?
Yeah,
I
there's
haven't
footage on
seen
the
it.
Twitter or the YouTube, but unless they filmed it after the show, it's not dark underneath the ring.
And you could have filmed that before the show, to be fair.
Yeah, and just put it on the
big screen.
Yeah.
And then you could have had everybody
We
brawling.
should book this stuff.
And you could have everybody brawling in the ring, all of a sudden stop and realise what's going on. And then
Everyone
everybody tries
dives
to go
under
under
the
the
ring.
ring and Truth comes out the
It'll
other
be
side.
genius, yeah.
And then everybody's like trying to scramble to find Truth
And
under
then
the ring.
Truth's the only
But
one
Truth's
stood up at the top of the
stage, like holding the title.
And then one person sneaks out
Yeah.
of the bottom, looks at Truth, and then goes to everyone like, guys, he's up there. And then they all run up the rank. We should book this stuff.
Well, at least it would
If
be
you would like
entertaining.
us to come and book your wrestling company, Vince, please, DM us and we'll give you our details and we'll speak soon.
Yeah.
We'll require payment, but
Yeah.
we'll speak soon. We can't do worse than what you've currently got, Vince. Just give us a go.
I'm pretty sure you could put a 3-year-old in charge. The show couldn't be any worse.
I think we decide a few weeks ago that they actually did have a 3-year-old in charge.
Well, I guess Vince is a 3-year-old in essence.
He's a 13-year-old. Come on.
Alistair Black cuts another promo, probably the worst of the bunch so far. Nobody answered his challenge, and this isn't your daddy's WWE. That was such a weird line. This isn't your daddy's WWE.
Which is funny because when you look at the product at the moment, like it absolutely is.
Well, the only people who are still watching the show are the over 55s anyway.
Yeah.
So actually, it's probably your granddaddy's WWE.
Everyone else is leaving in droves. This is awful.
Alistair
you're
is
not
waiting.
answering my challenges, so I'm angry.
Alistair is waiting impatiently.
It wasn't even that though.
No, you actually said that.
Yeah,
I am waiting impatiently.
But the problem was like he's not challenging anyone. He's like annoyed that people aren't challenging him. Well, go and ask Shane for a match because Charlotte does it, and it takes all of 2 minutes apparently.
So Shane and the Revival come out. Shane gets his intro, which as always is impressive from Greg Hamilton. And the Revival are just amazing in this part. Like, Greg's just making the announcement and the Revival are standing on the top rope. They're applauding. They're just being these, like, suck-ups and just... they're the greasiest heels you've ever seen. Awesome. Shane praises them for taking out the Usos on Monday and how they helped him take out Roman as a guy in the crowd on the hard cam goes absolutely mental with the greatest one-man standing ovation of all time. He broke Reigns on Raw, Shane did, and he will neuter the big dog on Friday. Roman comes out and the Revival try to head him off at the pass, but he takes them out with Superman punches. He heads to the ring, but Drew takes him out with a Claymore. He rolls Roman in the ring, and Shane hits a spear. This was a segment. Like, the most entertaining thing was the Revival standing on the top rope acting like geeks in a good way, and that guy in the crowd standing up and giving a one-man standing ovation. Those were the two most entertaining things in the segment.
Shane needs to be written off TV.
He certainly does. So next up we had the Triple Threat number 1 contenders match. They work a typical Triple Threat match early until Charlotte takes control. Alexa then hits Code Red on Charlotte for 2. Charlotte cradles Carmella for 2, but Carmella then locks on the Code of Silence. Mandy and Sonya come out and distract Carmella, allowing Alexa to attack. Charlotte and Alexa go back and forth until Carmella takes them out with a crossbody, getting a 2 count on both. Carmella sends Bliss into the post. Charlotte takes her out with a lariat and locks on the figure 8, but Bliss hits Twisted Bliss in a really nice spot and gets a near fall. She misses the moonsault double knees on Carmella, and Charlotte hits natural selection on Alexa for 2. Carmella hits a super kick on Charlotte, but Mandy and Sonya try to pull her to the floor, which allows Alexa to hit the DDT on Carmella and pick up the win. This was good.
This was good.
A really, really good triple threat match. It didn't go very long, like probably 7-8 minutes, something like that. But for what it was, I don't know whether it was just because the rest of the show was dull, but like this really stood out as a thoroughly entertaining match that was well worked, well put together. I didn't even mind the interference because it made sense.
Totally agree.
It felt like they were building a feud between Mandy Sonya and Carmella, so I was fine with this.
So was I. Absolutely, I quite liked it. The only thing is that Alexa's on Raw.
Yeah, well, she's getting a shot at Bayley's title, so I guess she can go dual branded if she wins the SmackDown title, I guess. Isn't that what Becky was technically doing when she was double champ?
Yeah,
she's
but
technically
not,
on Raw.
But that's not,
isn't she?
No, but she had 2
Is
belts.
she on Raw? She's still technically on SmackDown.
Becky's on Raw.
Well,
Becky's on Raw. She's the Raw champion. She's on Raw.
She said
that she was officially Raw. Like,
did she?
After whatever it was. What was it? Money in the Bank. What show was it? She lost the title. Money in the Bank.
Money in the Bank.
Yeah, she lost.
Because technically, she was never drafted. She was never traded in the Superstar Shake-Up because she was double champ. So there was no reason for it to be. So technically, in my mind, she should still be SmackDown.
No, she's Raw.
But she was never drafted to Raw.
She's Raw.
Okay.
Reasons. Yeah. Reasons. I mean, she holds the title. It's a good reason.
Let's go to what I almost want to give segment of the week just because of it was actually managed to somehow be worse than that Charlotte Lacey match on Raw. So I kind of want to give it segment of the week because of how bad it was. Yeah, well, anyway. So Kayla interviews Lars Sullivan in the ring. She asks Lars why he does what he does. He responds, wondering if she would ask a lion why they stalk their prey. He is no man, he is a freak. And he makes Kayla say it. The one good thing in this segment is she did a great job of looking absolutely petrified. But Lars is here to show that the world is full of pain, agony, and freaks like him. Kayla asks what he hopes to teach the Lucha House Party on Friday. Great question, Kayla. Lars then gets super creepy and asks her if she likes nursery rhymes. He says, and this next bit is verbatim, 3 blind mice. See how they run. Watch how they're caught. Watch how their tails are ripped off with my bare hands and a portrait is painted with their bodily fluids. What?
I assume they were going for like almost like a crazy serial killer type thing. Right?
This was just weird and perverse.
Yeah. I guarantee Vince wrote this.
Just for future reference, there is a good chance this segment ends up being worst moment of the year in the end of year awards.
Oh,
just throwing it out there.
Don't know.
Can you think of anything worse? So we're halfway through the year. Has there been a worse segment than this year?
Yeah, there will have, but it's not coming to mind.
Yeah.
There will be a worse segment.
If you can find it, tell me, because I want to see it in a sort of twisted way. So Andrade versus Apollo is supposed to take place next, but Andrade attacks before the bell and lays him out with the hammerlock DDT. This brings out Finn Balor, who brawls with Andrade. He gets the upper hand until Zelina grabs his foot, allowing Andrade to take control and lay him out with the hammerlock DDT. Decent build for Friday, it was.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, from what I've heard, they had the best match of the show on Friday. You will be shocked to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, next we had a really good segment. So Goldberg comes out to a great reaction. He says he's been waiting for over 20 years to face Taker. He references Taker's promo from last night and says that he left that family man at home. He promises Taker will get the mythical Goldberg on Friday. And we will see who the better man is, because Taker is next to rest in peace.
He wasn't.
We get the dong that signals the coming of The Undertaker. He appears in the ring with Goldberg as the crowd loses their minds. The dong sounds again and Taker is gone. Goldberg asks if that's it, then tells Taker to tighten his jockstrap on Friday because it's going to be a ride. This was the best thing on the show, even if it's built into a show we didn't watch and had no interest in, and a match that I've wrote in my notes will likely suck. P.S. By all accounts, it did. Again, we didn't watch the show, but we've heard.
And there were reports that the talent hated being there.
Yeah. Just a great promo from Goldberg, though, and the crowd ate everything up.
Totally agree.
And
the promo was incredible.
Since NXT was basically on hiatus this week.
Totally agree.
And since 205 Live was largely built on matches, segment of the week.
Yeah, I agree. It was good.
It's a really good promo from Goldberg, and for somebody who I never considered a very good promo.
He was, though.
He had a lot of charisma
body
in his
charisma.
character and
It was-
body
it was
charisma, yeah.
He could sell everything.
Promo-wise, I never thought he was amazing, but this was phenomenal. I loved it.
Alvarez said on the Observer Radio that Dave Meltzer disagreed, but like Alvarez said, like, you know, if Goldberg was 20 years younger, like he'd be the top guy now. Like talking that way. Meltzer disagreed and said that obviously he was not a good worker and that fans expect more now than they did in 1997.
No, but I think if you look at Ryback, which was not that long ago,
yeah,
I would consider that still the modern era. That dude got over. He could have been.
I do wonder how long that would have lasted.
We don't know.
But we'll never know. I'm not saying
all we've got is him
Cena,
getting super hot.
And Cena wasn't a great wrestler at the start of his run.
God, no, he was awful.
So yeah, fair point.
Yeah, but anyway, SmackDown sucked this week. SmackDown viewership. SmackDown drew 2.02 million viewers this week, which was down 3% from last week, despite no NBA Finals, nor a Stanley Cup game. This all in spite of a majorly hyped appearance of Goldberg. They were only 6% down from last year's viewership, which is much better than we've been seeing, but God, that's an awful number.
It's not good, is it?
They
down.
retained 84% of Raw's audience, which is just shy of the norm, so around about where you would expect them to be in comparison to Raw. But hype and Goldberg, I would have thought they would have been up from last week.
Yeah, not good, is it?
Not good.
Not good.
And with that, we will move on to NXT. We open with highlights of TakeOver with special emphasis on that line Nigel said about being the true alternative. And then we got Keith Lee versus Corner Reeves. Lee dominates early until Corner feigns an injury, lands a headbutt on Lee. He works a pretty dull heat segment. Lee starts absorbing strikes from Corner and takes him out with a running crossbody. Corner powders and snaps the ropes into Lee's face, which was nice, before hitting the rock bottom for 2. He goes for a V-trigger, but Lee takes him out with some strikes, a pounce, and then the limit breaker for the win. This was a perfectly fine build for Keith Lee.
Absolutely fine. Keith Lee should have won, which he did, so totally agree.
We see highlights of Shayna versus Io and then see footage of Io walking backstage saying she is not done with Shayna. Next week we will see Jessamine and Marina take on Candice and Io. We then get highlights of the tag team ladder match and then see the Street Profits celebrating backstage. They say the cameraman has been with them since day one and bring him into shot to celebrate with them. They realise he's wearing a Matt Riddle shirt, which was quite funny, so take him with them to get a new Street Profits t-shirt. It was harmless fun, standard Street Profits stuff.
Agreed.
We get highlights of Dream versus Breeze and then get an exclusive interview with Breeze where he says the match could have gone either way, but he has gained respect for Dream. He sees the landscape has changed, but he's not going anywhere. He is back in NXT.
Love it.
Yeah. We get an interesting looking Damian Priest vignette. And then we get Bianca Belair versus Mia Yim. They work counters back and forth early as each tries to establish control. Bianca eventually gets the upper hand and works the heat. Bianca hits a nice tilt-a-whirl gutbuster for 2. She then cinches on a bow and arrow. You don't see that enough anymore.
No, I love bow and arrow as well.
Mia flips into a pin attempt, but Bianca reestablishes control quickly. Bianca gets too cocky though, and Mia gets a leg drop roll, like a leg trap roll up for 2. She tries to lock on a cross arm breaker, but Bianca transitions into a pin attempt, forcing Mia to let go. Mia locks on a guillotine, but Bianca slams her down to fight out. Bianca stretches Mia around the post, but Mia pulls her into the post. Bianca tries for the glam slam on the floor, but Mia rolls forward and sends Bianca into the steel steps. Mia rolls Bianca back in at 8. She lays in the S-kicks on Bianca and follows with a basement dropkick before locking on the tarantula and hits Code Blue for a super near fall. Mia lays in some Kawada kicks, but when she goes to run the ropes, Bianca pulls her back into a brutal-looking German suplex that gets 2. Bianca smartly wraps her hair up to avoid Mia using it like last time, and she goes for the alley-oop, but Mia transitions into a guillotine. They fight back and forth until Mia climbs up top and hits Protect Your Neck from the top rope for the surprise victory. It totally shocked me, that.
Yeah, I really thought that Bianca was going to win.
I have to assume that there's a reason for this, because there's a reason for everything NXT does, and I think possibly, since I don't know when the next takeover is going to be, do you think Mia gets a shot at Shayna on the TV tapings?
Just as a filler.
And then we get Io versus Shayna at the next takeover again?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I would assume so. And then it also, like, losing hopefully will further Bianca's sort of heel turn.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll make her even more heelish,
Yeah.
I wonder.
So this was another really good match between these two as well. And we see comments from Drew Gulak after last week's defeat to Kushida. He mocks Kathy for her stupid questions and says Kushida is supposedly a submission specialist, but he took the easy way out and pinned him. He challenges Kushida to a submission match for next week, which is accepted and confirmed and will likely rule.
That will be really, really good.
Sadly, Bobby Fish was injured at TakeOver, so next week's main event will pit Lorcan and Birch against the Undisputed Era team of O'Reilly and Strong.
Oh, well, that's a massive downgrade, that.
Yeah, well...
I mean, it is, but it's not a massive downgrade, is it?
No, it's not.
Like O'Reilly and Strong.
It's just sad to see Bobby injured again. I just wish the guy could stay fit. We don't know. They announced he was injured on TV. Yeah. I haven't heard anybody report anything about it, but they've announced he was injured on TV, and that Strong will be taking his place next week.
Isn't it amazing that Fish was the one that was injured and not Kyle?
Oh God,
how Kyle survived that match.
Although I do remember Bobby taking a really nasty fall at the outside towards the end of the match.
Oh, yeah.
I do remember that. I don't know whether that's anything to do with it, pure speculation. And then we get extended highlights of Cole versus Gargano to end the show. This was just an episode of highlights, essentially, with one squash match, one really nice match, and that was pretty much it.
It's always like this, though, isn't it?
Yeah, so nothing really to report on NXT this week, nothing massive. 205 Live, then. We open with the usual awesome Drake Maverick opening to build the show, and then we get, supposedly, Akira Tozawa versus Noam Dar, but before the match can start, Drew Gulak attacks Dar, targeting Dar's knee. I didn't like this because Tozawa had made his entrance, so he then just stood and watched as Gulak beat down Dar on the outside, and I wish they'd done the entrances the other way around, because it was a simple way to avoid it. Just don't have Tozawa come out and run Gulak off, and you can still do what they did next, which was him saying he wanted a match with Gulak, and then Drake confirming it. And this became a bit of a theme, and I hope we're not changing GMs in 205 Live, because commentary harped on about why is Drake rewarding Gulak for his bad behaviour by accepting this match and making the match.
Oh, please no.
Yeah.
Please no.
Him and Regal are by far and away the best GMs they have.
Because they're just neutral.
Don't screw with it.
No.
So, next up we did have Akira Tozawa versus Drew Gulak. Gulak dominated early until Tozawa went for the Iron Octopus, but Gulak fought out and regained control. Tozawa finally started to fire back, but had to change his plan for a dive several times as Gulak kept moving. Eventually he hit a cannonball off the apron onto Gulak. Gulak threw Tozawa back in, but got caught with a tope suicida. Tozawa went up top and hit the missile dropkick for 2. They trade control, and then Tozawa catches Gulak in the Iron Octopus, but Gulak manages to get his foot on the bottom rope. Gulak hit a rough-looking version of the alley-oop and then transitioned into a nice-looking cloverleaf. Tozawa eventually made it to the ropes. They trade strikes until Gulak levels him with a lariat. He hits a gut-wrench suplex for 2. They trade control again, and Tozawa powers through the paint to hit a fireman's carry facebuster and follows up with Trouble in Paradise. Up top, Tozawa goes for the senton, but Gulak meets him up there and hits a superplex. Gulak then hits an Argentine neckbreaker for the surprise win. This was a classic case of don't book this match. But hey, Gulak needed the win, and I'm interested to see what they do with him. I just don't like the idea of your number one contender losing a match.
I agree.
If they add Gulak to the match and make it a 3-way, that would work.
Yeah.
But if they're still just going to run with Tozawa versus Nice, I don't like seeing your contender get beat. It just rubs us the wrong way.
I assume that Gulak's going to ask to be put in the match. Yeah. And you know what? That'll be a really good 3-way match.
No, totally.
And I've always said Gulak is a main eventer in 205 Live and has deserved more than he's been given. He's been great in his role, but I think he could very easily be we've talked about, he could be the next champ after Nice. I think he'd be great as champ and a heel champ. So we'll see.
So Mike Kanellis cuts a backstage promo trying to rip off a CM Punk promo. He fails miserably. He says he's not complacent and he has a message for Drake. He wants the best competition the Cruiserweight division has to offer. And then Sarah Schreiber approaches Tony Nese to talk about the Gulak-Tozawa situation. Nese has a go at Maverick for booking the match, but says he's going to leave who should be number one contender now up to him. Regardless, though, he'll be ready for whoever it is. The Lucha House Party say they're going to beat Lars on Friday and then beat the Sings once they're done with Lars. And then it was time for our main event, which was Oni Lorcan versus Arya Daivari. They took turns controlling the match on the mat early. A diving crossbody gets 2 for Lorcan, and then he retakes control on the ground. Lorcan hits a hip toss and locks on the armbar, but Daivari makes it to the ropes. Daivari baits Oni to the floor and then slides straight back in. He tries an elbow drop when Lorcan slides in, but Lorcan avoids it. Daivari hits a second rope neckbreaker though. Lorcan fights back and works over the arm, but Daivari catches him with a lariat. Daivari hits an iconoclasm for 2. He heads up top but misses a weird looking splash. Lorcan takes control with some strikes and then levels Daivari with a running European. He hits a release Northern Lights and follows with the blockbuster for 2. He then goes for the half and half suplex, but Daivari rolls through into a pinfall attempt for 2. He goes for a couple of hammerlock lariats with no success, but then lands a super kick. He heads up top, but Lorcan catches him coming down, hits a divorce cord for 2. Daivari fights back and locks on the $1 Million Dream. Lorcan eventually fights out, but gets caught with a Scorpion Death Drop. Daivari hits the Frog Splash from the top and covers Lorcan, but Lorcan turns it straight into a Crucifix pin for the win. Daivari tries to attack Lorcan after the match, but Oni low bridges him as the show ends. This was okay, but kind of weak as a main event. I don't get the appeal of Arya Daivari. I'm sorry.
No, we've said this a lot of times. Like he's not bad. He's just not good, and he's a job guy to me. He's not good. He's not any better than that.
Yeah.
And only Lorcan, he's like upper mid card now in 205, and I could see him having
at least he picked up the win
or something like that.
You know what? This would I probably would have liked the show a hell of a lot much more if they just swapped the 2 matches.
Yeah,
if Gulak and Tozawa had main evented and this had been the opener, I'd have probably liked the show a lot better.
And they just booked the way to get Gulak in that match a bit better.
It was still a decent show.
Yeah,
and I thoroughly enjoyed Tozawa Gulak. I thought it was a really, really good match.
Because what they could have done is they could have still had that match be at the start, but then Tozawa's not there, Gulak comes out and attacks, and then it's like, oh, well, we can't have that match. What are we going to do?
And then Tozawa demands the match from Maverick.
But that's then made as the main event.
Yeah.
And then that gives time, to do everything else in the show, and then you then have Gulak Tozawa as the main event, where Tozawa's sort of getting revenge for Dar and all that stuff, and it makes sense.
And with that, we will move on to any other business. Just a couple of things to mention. Cedric tweeted saying he misses 205 Live. Boy, we miss him on there too, don't we?
Yeah, and it needs him too. Like it
does feel like
depleted.
the show's missing something.
It's depleted.
Yeah.
Like I love 205 Live, and it's still good, but like it really is lacking in star power at the moment. And why did they take Cedric off? If they were just going to put him in the 24/7, he doesn't ever actually win it as well. He's just there.
Yeah, he's just another guy.
If it was if he was Crash Holly, then I'd
and
be
what?
You know what?
Like,
awesome.
I'm not being funny. You can have him in the 24/7 title picture, but you can still have him on 205 Live.
Yeah.
Like it would,
look at Drake.
Yeah, Drake's literally the GM.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Awful.
And Miko Satomura will challenge for the Progress Women's Championship at Progress Wrestling's Still Chasing show at Ali Pali in London.
Not the one that we're going
on September 15th. Dude, if we'd been seeing Jordan Grace versus Miko Satomura,
I'd have gone crazy.
At the show we're going to in Newcastle, I would have lost my mind.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing that it didn't happen, because I would have just been stood with just a massive grin on my face for the next,
2 weeks.
4 weeks or whatever it is until the show.
Yeah, because we're already seeing Dragunov and Devlin.
Yeah.
As well as the usual Progress lot.
Still should be a fun show. We should do a review on that after we've been at the show.
Yeah, that would be good actually. Yeah.
Do a special pod for it.
Yeah.
So that'll be coming in the future. And our final segment this week features New Japan's Dominion show. So we have literally, just before we started recording this podcast, finished watching Dominion. And
interesting.
I haven't taken any notes, so I can't give any sort of detailed feedback on the show, but really interesting show.
Yeah.
I thought it was very, very good, personally. Do you want to run through sort of match by match?
Yeah, we'll just go through the matches that were the...
So we opened with Moxley Umino. It was nothing to write home about, really. Really short match. Mox gave Umino a few things and then pinned him with his finisher.
Death Rider.
Is that what they're calling
Death
it?
Rider.
Yeah, they're calling it Death Rider.
It's cool now.
Yeah. So he pinned him with that, and then the interesting part was he helped him up after the match and sort of walked Umino to the back, which got a really nice reaction from the crowd.
Babyface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's going to be one of those where he's like, he's Moxley. He's not babyface. He's not heel.
He's a lunatic fringe.
No, they won't use a nickname as stupid as that. How much cooler is Death Rider than lunatic fringe?
It's so him. It's so him. This is so you.
Anyway.
I wonder who said that.
So next up we had, what was next actually? It was Kojima versus Shingo, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. So this was
better than it had any right to be.
Yeah, because I love Kojima, but he's not
Satoshi Kojima from 2003 anymore.
He's not. But lariat.
If you don't know what that is, Google homicide, CM Punk.
Yeah, it's Kojima final battle.
They're gonna pay for all my food.
They put the belt on me. Oh, good times. Imagine Gabe just having an absolute coronary.
He was as well.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's CM Punk. I just screwing with you.
Yeah.
He does not say screwing.
Yeah. Good cover for this show. Well done.
I know. Thank you.
Anyway.
We're PG here.
Yeah. So Kojima versus Shingo. I thought this was a really, really fun match. Nothing blow away, but like a good first sort of quote-unquote heavyweight match for Shingo.
Agreed.
The one thing we forgot to mention in the Moxley match was after the match he announced that he wanted to be part of the G1, which means he will be in the G1.
And after
Shingo
match
won against Kojima with Last of the Dragon, he said he wanted to be in the G1 as well, so we assume he will be in there as well.
Yep.
And then we had a couple of tag matches, so we had the Suzuki Gun versus Liger. And who was Liger's partner?
Yoshihashi. How have you forgotten?
Yeah. Because Yoshihashi picked up the win
over
with a roll-up against Sabre.
Wrong.
Just does not work. Like, if they wanted that team to win, have Liger short hair Misu and pin him with a brainbuster. Because I want to see that match.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
I know it's going to happen. But continue building it. Don't give Yoshihashi a win.
Never
give Yoshihashi a win.
Yeah.
Never go full Yoshihashi. So next up we had the 6-man tag with Tana's team against the Bullet Club. Yeah, and Tana picked up the win with an awful looking what I assume is his new finisher. I do not like that.
It was like you said. It was like
a weird version of the GTR. Isn't it?
It was not good. Yeah.
No, I don't like it.
No,
yeah. Tana, I get.
Though? Remember the Rainmaker looked rubbish the first time I ever saw it.
Yeah, but that was because Yoshihashi was taking it.
Well, I mean, Chase is not exactly a bad word.
No, Chase is a really good bumper as well.
Yeah.
Like, he will take... Like, that move sucks. It's nothing to do with how Chase took it.
Yeah.
The move just sucks. Like, I get Tana coming up with a new... Yeah, he can't be doing the high-fly flow all the time. His knees are knackered. So I do get him coming up with a new finisher, and I think it's a good idea. But just come up with something different than that, please. Better. Yeah.
I like... You could... Like, it could be something like twist and shout-ish,
I think it does need to be a new move because for too long he's done his signature move, so you couldn't just start using the Sling Blade as his finisher or anything. But you know what? Do a brain buster. I'm sure Tana could do a nice looking brain buster,
like a fisherman buster type thing.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so next up we had Taichi versus Ishii.
This was
way better than I expected.
Yeah, after the first few minutes, it was way better than it had any right to be.
I did say it to you. I think we're about 5 or 6 minutes in. We just heard the 5-minute call, and I just said, "There's been pretty dull so far."
Yeah, and then suddenly we were just talking.
Yeah.
Through it.
Yeah, and it got really
wow,
good.
This is actually quite good now.
Yeah, and I noticed both of us
good.
Sort of like I was leaned over in your chair, and all of a sudden I was sat up, and then I was sat forward, and then I was leaning forward in my chair, and I could see you doing the same. Like we got really into it.
It was sneaky good.
Yeah, and Ishii won. Probably the best match I've ever seen Taichi have.
Agreed. And I've seen a lot of Taichi matches.
Mm-hmm. And he pinned him after the brainbuster. Good match. Yeah. Right decision. Right winner.
Moving on.
Nothing much more to write home about than that. And then we had God versus LIJ. Now, this is probably, to me, like, you can't really count the tag matches were just there and just not filler, but build.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were building matches, and the Mox match was very short. But if you take those out of the equation, this was the weakest match on the card. It wasn't very good at all. And it's God. Like, they are the problem.
Apart from their work.
It's great.
Is great. But
but their work sucks.
In the ring sucks.
Yeah.
They're not very good in the ring.
Yeah.
And I wish that Tama would stop doing that, like, dancing. I can't, obviously, like, I can't show anyone, but, like, that weird dancing thing he does when he comes out, where he does, like, the too sweet dance thing. It looks so awkward. Yeah. Anyway, like, God picked up the win. And
what did the win with?
Was it a roll up with the tights?
Oh, yeah, of course it was. Yeah. On Evil, yeah.
So I assume this will not finish their feud, but just not good.
If they want to keep LIJ fresh because I assume they'll both be in the G1.
Oh, yeah, they'll both be in the G1.
Then fine, they can be tag champs after. Just get the belt off God as soon as possible, please.
Yeah. And
when did Kenta come out? Was it
this?
now?
I think it was after this. So yeah. So first off, Katsuyori Shibata came out to a huge pop because it's
from
Katsuyori
both of us
Shibata.
As well.
Yeah, he looked so healthy as well. It was great.
Looked so good. Yeah.
And he then pointed back at the entranceway, and then for a while, nothing happened.
Yeah, that was a little bit awkward. I think
was
they
like
should have
about
done it
30
quicker.
seconds at the least before Kenta came out. But then Kenta came out and there was no reaction.
And I was like, wow, Kenta's getting no reaction. But it was
Yeah.
obviously just the crowd couldn't see him.
They couldn't see him. And then as soon as he shook hands with Shibata, you got a, oh. And he came in the ring, thanked Shibata for allowing him to be there, because Shibata obviously has now a position within the company of New Japan. And he thanked Shibata for letting him be there, and he confirmed that he will be in the G1 Climax as well. It's going to be a very different G1 this year.
We've had this
big names.
We've had super G1s for the last 3 or 4 years, but they have been very similar guys. Like, there's not been much change. It feels like a bit different this year because obviously we're not going to have Omega, so far as we're aware, unless them and AEW work out something snappish.
Yeah, we're going to have Mox.
We're going to have Moxley in there. We're going to have Kenta in there, and we're going to have Shingo.
Yeah.
So some really fresh matchups. So I'm really excited for the G1 this year.
Should be good.
And next up, we had the best thing on the show, and it was just awesome. And it's just like Will Ospreay is so good, and Dragon Lee is so good
as well.
Like I absolutely loved this match. Like, we can't recap. There's so much cool stuff happening in the match. They built and built and built, and just like every time I thought they'd peaked, they took me to another level.
New, cool happened.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
The suicide dive into the spear while Ospreay was on the barricade was awesome.
So I think we've both said this off air. Like, we're going to say it now. Like, Will Ospreay is currently the best wrestler in the world.
Yeah, on current form. I still think
currently,
like overall Kazuchika Okada is the best wrestler in the world, but on current form, without doubt, I think there's a clear top 3 this year for me so far. It's Will Ospreay, Johnny Gargano, and Kento Miyahara. They're the top 3 without doubt in my mind.
Because Okada had the opportunities, really, I think, far this year.
He's had good matches, don't get us wrong, but he's not had many that have stood out as massively great to me.
Yeah.
But Will Ospreay's just had fantastic match after fantastic match this year, and this was just another one of them. And you pointed out that this was basically Ospreay's coronation, wasn't it?
So Ospreay won with the top rope, Oz cutter.
And then the Stormbreaker. Basically the same finishing sequence that he won against Shingo with at the Best Super Juniors final.
It was absolutely fantastic. And I feel like it was an ace moment. I think that there's a very strong possibility now that they move forward with Ospreay as the main focus of the junior division until Hiromu comes back, and then they'll build. I would like to hope for the Tokyo Dome, Ospreay against Hiromu. If I was them, I was saying to you, if I was them, I would do the Super J Cup in December. I would have Hiromu win the Super J Cup, and then you roll through to the Dome, January 4th, Dome show. Wrestle Kingdom before 14 now?
14, yeah.
14? Yeah, with Hiromu challenging Ospreay, who will then be pretty dominant.
That would be such a good match.
After like half a year, of being champion.
It's just interesting because they've toyed with the idea, like Ospreay won the Never Openweight title, they've toyed with the idea of taking him to heavyweight, but this really did feel like an ace crowning moment, didn't it? So I can only assume that he's going to continue in the junior division unless they're going to acquiesce to his thing about fighting both juniors and heavies, which I know you're not massively struck on.
It's just not traditional for me.
Yeah. So next up we had... did we have a match or did we have 2 men trying to murder each other? Because I'm not quite sure.
I think we had grievous bodily harm.
Yeah, so it was Kota Ibushi. No, that's a totally different faction, mate. We had Kota Ibushi versus Tetsuya Naito.
Bash heel.
Yeah, well,
Well, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Inside joke. Yeah, so we had Kota Ibushi versus Tetsuya Naito, and this was really, really good. Apart from there was a couple of times in the match where I was just like...
It was really dangerous.
It was like, there's a move, and I suggest you don't seek it out. Like, I suggest you seek the match out, because the match was unbelievable, and I don't want to take away from it. But I definitely don't suggest you physically go out and look for the spot where Naito German Ibushi off the apron.
Ibushi's neck.
How he didn't break his neck.
Ibushi's body lands off the apron, but Ibushi's neck lands on it.
Yeah.
And like genuinely, Ibushi could have broken his neck.
Oh, quite easily. Like I genuinely don't know how he didn't.
His body that's on the ring, and it's really, really like. We were really worried, and then he fell over after the match, and we were a bit like, oh.
Yeah.
I've got no reports that anything was wrong though.
No, so we really hope that Kota's okay, and we hope that Naito's okay as well, because I can't remember what the move was, but at one point Naito absolutely either spiked himself or Ibushi spiked him on the top of his head as well. Because I was like, how's he not broken his neck?
Was it a reverse Poison Rhino off? Was it a Poison Rhino off the top or something?
No, because they did that just after, didn't they? Because that what you're thinking of is Naito hit Poison Rana off the top rope on Ibushi when they got back in the ring after the apron German. But either way, Ibushi did something to Naito, and I was just like, how is he not broken his neck?
Yeah.
And it's just like, what's going on here? And then, just completely out in left field, Naito beat him with Destino.
Naito won.
Yeah.
We were convinced that Ibushi was winning because Naito was winning the G1.
Yeah, that was what we had in our mind.
So what we're assuming now then is that Naito obviously won, and we're assuming that Ibushi is going to the final of the G1 at the very least, because otherwise they wouldn't take the belt off him. Like there was no reason to take the belt off him unless he's winning G1.
Yeah,
and it wouldn't shock me, you know.
He would be favourite right now for me.
Yeah, and I think he's getting to the final at the very, very least.
Yeah, but things can change, so we will see. We will do some predictions for G1.
We will.
So then we had our main event, which was Kazuchika Okada defending the IWGP Heavyweight Championship against Chris Jericho.
The Pinmaker.
Yeah, this was good, but it wasn't great.
No,
it was one of the weaker New Japan main events you'll ever see.
It was okay.
We try to avoid doing star ratings on the show because they're so divisive. But what do you say, like 3.25, 3.5, something like that?
3.5.
That's where I would have been around about there.
No, I never felt like turning it off. I was entertained.
Yeah,
but it's not what I've come to expect from New Japan main events.
Yeah, it just wasn't the level you'd usually expect. And I think in some ways we kind of expect that going in because Jericho's amazing right now. His character work is unbelievable, but
he's not what he was in the ring.
He's not what he was in the ring. And he's not bad by any means.
He's still better than most.
But he's not to the level of a New Japan main eventer, unfortunately, on a purely in-ring perspective. And I don't have any problem with him being in the main event.
No, not at all.
But
because he's a main event star.
Yeah, but it was a little disappointing, I would have said, this match.
I agree. There was a lot of brawling and a lot of like grandstanding and stuff like that. But like,
it was a very Jericho style match.
Time.
You know, it wasn't an Okada style match. Like you made the point early on that it felt like Jericho was calling the match.
Yeah, it was super slow.
Yeah,
and it's like it felt exactly like Jericho's matches against
KO, AJ? Naito, sorry.
Like where it was very slow and then it would speed up. But I don't feel like Okada, because assumingly it felt like Okada took over the calling towards the end.
Yeah.
But like it never got fast. You know, like Okada's finishing stretches are always like frenetic.
He's the best finishing stretch worker in probably the history of the business.
But they're always frenetic, and it's like I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
Because it's all moving, everything's moving so fast.
Yeah.
Like Wrestle Kingdom against Jay White, it was so fast.
That was one of the best finishing sequences I've ever seen.
Yeah, this wasn't like that. But it was still good, and I still enjoyed it. But it wasn't what I hoped, and obviously at the end, Kazuchika Okada.
That was the bit that didn't really work for me. Like the match was fine. It was the after-match stuff that I didn't really like.
Well, first off, we got the finish where like Okada won
Okada retained by
roll-up.
Well, no, technically it wasn't a roll-up, but it was a.
You know what I mean?
It was a cheap pinfall. Yeah,
it was a pin.
Which I think you were disappointed in, but I'd kind of expected that because I think Jericho will have wanted to save face quite a bit, considering he's going into AEW's first title match.
It's just not New Japan.
I know.
I get why. It's just not New Japan.
Yeah.
So then after the match.
Yeah. Like post-match, Jericho attacked Okada and beat them all down all around ringside, beat them down for ages, chair shots. He sort of Pillmanized him on the ring post type of thing.
And then he was going to go
put him through a table, and Tanner made the save, which was, you know what, I really did enjoy that part of it. Tanner coming to Okada's rescue. And to be honest, I didn't hate the post-match as much as a lot of people did. What I think really turned the crowd was the fact that they didn't do a post-match speech. If Tanner and Okada had got in the ring after that and just said, thanks for coming, we're going to get you back, Chris Jericho, usual rah-rah speech at the end of a New Japan show, I think the crowd would have probably gone home happy.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded if Okada had not been able to do it. So Tanner had decided, right, well, I'll go and send the crowd
get the air guitar out.
Yeah, and that would have sent the crowd unhappy. When Okada was taken backstage, the announcer, because there was someone on Twitter who'd been there, and I was looking at what he'd said. And when the announcer then said there will be no after-match speech, there was just huge boos.
Yeah, they were quite vociferous, weren't they?
And they always do, but they very quickly made their way out of the arena. And supposedly the people who were there said there was people shouting, that they wanted their money back, and things like that, and the atmosphere was not what's usually expected after a New Japan show. And I think that's purely because they're just not used to being sent home feeling like that. They're used to being sent home after watching Tana do the air guitar, or Okada celebrating, or Naito going, Los Ingobernables, and that's what they're used to. Like this positive vibe.
This is what I was saying to you. I think this would have worked on an American show, because we get on WWE for doing heat, and always sending the crowd home unhappy. But if you do send the crowd home happy quite consistently, like New Japan does, then you can get away with doing this. But the problem is,
if it doesn't come across culturally,
it's clearly different over there, and that's not something that they accept. So I think the speech would have saved things if Tanner had helped Okada backstage and then come back out and done the speech.
It was a fairly flat finish, I must be honest.
Yeah, but overall, considering the card, really, really good show.
Yeah, because it was not a great card, but it was a decent show. And obviously we're now going to start and pick up. We're now, very much in G1 country. Yeah. So let's see where on earth we go with that as we then get towards King of Pro Wrestling later on in the year. And
right, so it's the road to the Tokyo Dome has now begun, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Yeah. Cannot wait.
So with that will do it for this week's episode. Anything you'd like to add before we go, Jonathan?
No.
Sorry, mate, we're out of time. We'll see you next week on the Two Man Booth.